Okay, I thought. If I'm gonna go fight bad guys, then the first thing I'm gonna need is something to hide my identity. I can't exactly go running around just looking like me. After all, I've become quite of a public figure, at least for the time being. Other than that, I also need to protect myself. I'd hate to get shot and that just be the end of my story. I don't know what the limits of healing are, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Not pushing it is definitely the better option. So, for the moment, I created myself a basic mask, made from the liquid steel, of course. Just enough to cover my face and hair. I didn't want to get recognized. Next up, I created a thin layer of body armor. After all, just because I'm strong doesn't mean I'm bulletproof. I needed to put as much protection on as I could, but I kept it fairly thin since my supply of the liquid metal is still fairly limited. Essentially, I made what amounts to a very thin, light, bulletproof vest, if you can call it that. Really, it's just a plate of liquid metal, bound by liquid metal ropes of sort, chains that extended from the front to the back, holding in a back segment as well, both as thin as possible. I needed them not to be extremely noticeable. After that, I put a hoodie on over it. The hood will help disguise the fact that I'm walking around in a mask. And last but not least, I traded in a few of my rings and bracelets for some gloves. They were a little bit time-consuming and tedious to make, but I didn't need to be leaving fingerprints all over everything. I kept my wallet on me, but took all of my identification and credit cards out of it, leaving them at home and taking only cash. I thought of just taking the cash as is, but just in case, I went ahead and wiped the fingerprints off of that as well. You never can be too careful. I'd hate to be busted by something silly, like going into a store to buy a drink, and the police tracing me back to that place, and asking for the bills that I paid for my food or drinks with, and finding out that it's me. I don't know how long I'm going to be out there, so it's best to be prepared. After all of those things were taken care of, I still had a small amount of liquid metal left. Just enough to make what amounted to some basic brass knuckles, but blunted a bit. I didn't want to kill anyone. I don't know how hard 10 times my physical strength is really capable of hitting. After all, I've never actually thrown a punch. And after that, it was out to the mean streets of New Star City. I made my way to the worst part of town. The part of town where you always heard about some sort of criminal activity going on. A place with a heavy amount of gang violence, as well as general crime, which actually isn't too far from where I live. I spent hours walking around, with basically no sign of any criminal activity, at least none that I could catch. Every once in a while I might hear some gunshots in the distance, and I'd take off like a bullet trying to make my way there. And I was actually surprised at how fast I could run. Really, I put track stars to shame. But even as fast as I was, by the time I showed up, it was always already over. Whatever had caused the commotion, long gone. While I was out walking, I did my best to keep my distance from people. I didn't want them to notice that I was wearing a mask. It might be trouble, at least for the moment being. The hoodie definitely helped cover my masked persona, I suppose. But in the end, after about 6 hours of roaming around, it became clear that I was having more trouble than I expected finding crime. Seriously, they always made it look so easy in movies and comic books. Like they just rush there and the crime would be ongoing. Or they just wander down the street and criminals would start committing acts of crime right where they were standing. or across the street or something. But I, on the other hand, was having a problem. I couldn't actually catch any criminals, at least not in the act. Frustrated, I made my way into a nearby store. Figured I'd get myself something to eat. I was feeling fairly hungry. I walked into a nearby fast convenience store. The Fast Pass was a go-to for many people when it came to quick in-and-out shopping. For junk food, cigarettes, and things like that. Even some beer if you needed it. I walked into the store, grabbing a large energy drink and a few sticks of beef jerky. 5 to be exact. I walked up, placing them on the counter. And in the moment, the guy behind the register freaked. He backed away rapidly. He's like, I don't want any trouble, man. Whatever you want, you can just take it, he said in a panic, quickly reaching over and tapping a button on the register as it popped open. This job isn't worth it, man. I do not make enough to get shot. Just take what you want and go. I sighed for a moment. I should have thought about coming in here with my mask on. Of course, he thinks I'm here to rob him. And I thought to myself, before saying, Yo, guy, I'm not here to rob you, man. You can calm down. You're fine. I'm not going to take any of your money or stuff. I'm not here to steal. And I'm definitely not going to hurt you. The mask is just for style purposes. It's not some sort of functional thing that I'm wearing to get away with crime or anything like that. I'm going to reach in my pocket and pull out the money for the things that I just brought up to the register. Not pulling a weapon on you. You're fine, I said as I reached into my pocket, pulling out a $20 bill and placing it on the register. I just want my food, man. Sorry if I gave you a scare. The guy breathed a sigh of relief. Dude, what the hell? You scared the fuck out of me. Do you know how many times a week this place gets robbed? It's been robbed 8 times since I started working here a month ago. Wearing a mask around here isn't a bright idea, man, the store clerk said, looking at me frustratedly, as he checked me out for the items that I was purchasing. I don't know what your deal is, he said, but if you're some kind of comic book nerd or something like that, I'd suggest finding a new place to do your little cosplay or whatever that is. This is a dangerous part of the city, man. You walk around like that, you're bound to find trouble, he said as he checked me out, giving me my change, which I happily stuffed into my pocket. I could need every penny that I could get. Well, thanks for the warning. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I am out looking for trouble, and just can't find any to save my life. I was just thinking about how they always made it look so easy in superhero movies. But how in the hell do you find a crime? The guy behind the register looked at me curiously before laughing vigorously. Dude, you're kidding me, right? Man, I'm gonna give you some advice. Go home before you get yourself killed. I sighed a bit. Of course he thinks I'm just some idiot who's out here going to get himself killed. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect when I started talking to him about it. But I figured my identity was safe, so it didn't really matter. The hoodie I was wearing had some front pocket area in it, which I stuffed the beef jerky into. After which I had the idea of giving my little cash register attendant a bit of a show. I cracked open my energy drink. Hey guy, you want to see something cool? I said, leaning over the counter a bit. Sure, what you got for me, superhero guy? The cash register attendant said, smiling. Check this out. I replied, raising one of my hands, as one of the bracelets I was wearing whirled into a liquid form, gathering into a sphere in the palm of my hand, and then beginning to form a long cylindrical tube shape. A straw, which I happily put into my energy drink. upon which time my mask had a fluid shimmer to it as an area opened up around my mouth, in which I happily placed the straw and began to drink my energy drink. "Dude, what the fuck was that?" the guy behind the cash register replied, with a very interested expression on his face. "That's my superpower, man. Liquid metal. That I can make into basically anything," I said after taking a refreshing sip. "You be on the lookout for me. Tonight's my first night out, but my guess is you're gonna hear about me. Eventually." "Have a nice night," I said, walking away from the register, giving him a wave. And just like that, I started heading home. Not exactly how I thought the night would go, but it works.